insurance policies. And also that leads to greater savings, enhanced savings, which boost economic growth. Everything is linked. And I think one of our jobs here today, and obviously continuously, is to keep promoting, communicating about the benefits of life insurance products, the benefits of long-term savings for our citizens. So this is about the upkeep of our citizens into the future. Without further ado, I'd like to make some acknowledgements. I'd like to acknowledge Engineer Tafazo Maguti, Permanent Secretary, Presidential Affairs in the Office of the President and Cabinet. He is on his way. I've spoken to him this morning. His Excellency Edward Callon, UN Resident Coordinator in Zimbabwe. Cuthbert Munjoma, Director Pensions and Life Insurance Supervision. Welcome, Cuthbert. Dr. Innocent Matse, Deputy Governor, Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. Mr. Samuel Masekete, Group CEO, Old Mutual. Fayaz King, Independent Non-Executive Director, Digital Transformation and Telecommunications. Welcome, Fayaz. We really appreciate you being here. Mr. D. Hoto, Group CEO of FML. Mr. Sakai Kuvarika, CEO CZI. Mrs. Rose Mpofu, Consumer Council of Zimbabwe. Mr. Wanda Mufunda, CEO, Center of Humanitarian Analytics. Colin Tafumane, CEO, Escrow Group. Christopher Mugaga, Chief Executive at Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce. Government officials here present, UN officials here present, Old Mutual executive, management and staff here present, business executives, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Without further ado, we'll move into our program. So I'd like to now call upon to give us an overview and really a sense of why we are here under this Better Future Summit. Please help me in welcoming, put your hands together for the Group CEO of Old Mutual Zimbabwe, Mr. Sam Masekete.
Thank you very much. And it's a very good morning indeed, a great day that we should look forward to today. I won't repeat all the protocol, but I think let me just recognize in his absence the presence of the Permanent Secretary, Presidential Affairs and Devolution in the Office of the President, Engineer Tafazo Muguti, the country representative for the United Nations Group, Dr. Edward Callon, and the Director of Pensions and Life Insurance Supervision at IPEC, Mr. Cuthbert Njoma. So we are gathered here again now for the third time. So this is the third episode of Better Future. And the theme has been explained briefly. But I just thought I would remind ourselves why it's so important to incline ourselves to thinking about the future. I think one of the biggest constraints that we always have in our private spaces, as households, as businesses, as private players, I have come to realize is in the failure to think about the future and think about it consciously and deliberately. And we hear statements like, tomorrow will sort itself, or we have been there. Those are indications that the way psychologically we are positioning ourselves to play in the arena is thinking about, yeah, we have been there. Maybe it's not possible. Or, you know what, tomorrow it will discover its own solutions. Until we get to that future date and we start thinking, I should have done this to make today better. And so the example I have always talked to my friends about is of a neighbor. And I won't disclose their gender or their race. But the neighbor had a plot next to our house. There was no infrastructure, there was no building yet. But this neighbor had already planted trees, ornamentals, fruit trees in the right mix as it turned out to be later, before the house was there. Obviously, there was final landscaping that was going to come after the house is built. when he eventually built his house, a few years down the road, it was like this house had just been plucked from somewhere to be located into a garden that's already mature. And you would think, okay, how did he actually do it? You realize that he thought, yes, I've got my vacant piece of land. He had a plan which was communicating what he was going to do in the future on that land. He knew exactly where he was going to place the house, the buildings. He also knew exactly how the ornamentals, the trees, some that would take 7 years, 8 years to mature, should be located on that piece of land to complete the beauty. So the house came and was perfectly located amongst a garden that he had worked on before. And we look at it today and we say, wow, if we had also planted trees back then, they would be as big as those and beautiful as those. And as the adage says, if we failed to plant the tree 20 years ago, the next best time to plant it is today. That's the inspiration of Better Future. To think about the future, perhaps in a way that we haven't thought about it in the past, in our various disciplines, whether it's about savings, financial choices, the things that we would like to think about as building blocks into that future we would like to see and enjoy as a better future. But the theme for the year is also talking about shifting forward, which Patrick has already spoken to in terms of what is the essence of shifting forward. We are hopefully today going to be thinking about how we create the momentum and foster progress into that better future through the decisions and choices, insights, and knowledge that we will share during the day. We have to think about the future in various decisions at household, individual, as business, so that that future we are thinking about, we start to create today. We want to add to hope and to desires practical measures that we can take to create that future. So we then develop the landing gears for the great ideas that we have got for our lives. Most of us here are in different careers or are running different businesses, and we've been successful in our own rights in the various spaces because of the decisions and commitments we made in the past. The school we went to, the choice of subjects, the career paths that we decided upon, and when people look at you today, they may not relate to those decisions, but you know exactly how those decisions have shaped where we are. And so we are challenging ourselves to look ahead and say, what new choices, what new decisions should we make today to make that future even brighter? Today is the first day of our future from now. We trust that the engagements today will assist us to grow, to sustain and protect our prosperity as individuals, as households, as industry, in the various parts, and we should play the relevant roles in those various spaces to support economic development of our country as responsible citizens. And thinking about the future as we make choices today, financial and non-financial thinking is an anchor to sustainability. Innovation is the next part, perhaps, that will occupy much more space. That's my fear because of how topical innovation and digital innovation is today. But the essence of our discussions and perhaps our discourses in that space is we do face myriads of challenges. And how do our products, our services, effectively address our needs as customers, as communities today? Because if we are not innovative or thinking innovatively about those solutions, we will fail to meet the needs and the demands satisfactorily. Globally, humanity is dealing with more complex challenges, and we in our microspaces are not spared. Patrick went into the example of how medicine has evolved, and there is a myriad of solutions that have also been developed to try and counter those challenges we face. Yet, if we embrace innovation as exemplified by various technologies that have come to the market, we turn each challenge into an opportunity and still sustain into the future. As private sector players working in support of government efforts, we must consider the question about whether we are delivering innovative solutions to the markets and communities we serve as a way to deliver value. We must also be thinking about how innovation should anchor the sustainability of our ventures into the future. How do we innovate savings, insurance, if I were to come home to our industry? How do we innovate the financing of major projects? How do we harness and pool efforts more effectively, more efficiently, and channel it for better economic allocation of resources? We must, in the same breath, be thinking about inclusion, which I think should be considered as a phenomenon beyond just access. True and fuller progress is registered if we also prioritize inclusion. Our products, our solutions, our services should seek to promote equitable access and participation. So maybe one test is, during the discussions we will be having, how effectively are we addressing the needs of society? And how far are we reaching with our solutions in the various spaces that we should touch in the communities? There is already recognition in the financial services through established policies such as bank use promotion or inclusion policies that we have also seen being promoted by the Insurance and Pensions Commission to facilitate pooling of resources, to facilitate access to products to cover risks by all segments of our societies. The question today is, how can we achieve better outcomes along that same thrust? Policy efficacy and growth momentum are strengthened when as many economic activities and transactions as possible are included into the mainstream economy. So our discourse today must explore some of the practical steps we can take to collectively, across all pillars of the economy, start to journey forward to promote formality and growth. Underpinning that, lastly, should be how do we create confidence at the various levels to sustain that momentum. The foundation of confidence or sustainability, perhaps one could say, is in developing resilient factors and building blocks around those areas of major effort. Confidence inspires stronger resolve and commitment to pursuit for growth. Under conditions of stronger confidence, economic agents commit more resources, more patiently, which means we can access more patient capital, and simply commit also greater efforts sustained over longer periods to achieve greater things, greater scale of outcomes. Stronger confidence levels tend to yield more durable outcomes and higher utility outcomes for the customers and the communities that we serve. As private sector players, we play a big part in strengthening the confidence of the markets and customers that we serve. Often, when you talk about confidence, especially as private sector players, we find therein something to outsource to government or to policymakers. But confidence is built collectively, and we must find ourselves, occupying our space as private sector players, proper space to also encourage and boost confidence. Where support is required through relevant policy frameworks, such should be sought. Confidence is led and inspired, as we should share the burden to inspire and create the right environment for business and to prosper. Even as we will make recommendations for consideration by policymakers, let us also commit from our various places to inspiring confidence for our various customers and those that we serve. And this can be done through the products that we extend, the service that we offer, the way that we create convenience and deliver it in a form that delivers value for money to our customers. In economic terms, strengthening confidence means learning from the past as well. Learning from the past while building systems that are future fit and resilient. There lies, again, a key anchor to sustainability into the future. So the purpose of this summit is to gather the ideas, the insights, share knowledge as active participants rather than passive listeners, so that we can extract that voice, perhaps plus the next, and emerge with stronger solutions. Every session, whether a Better Future talk or a panel, focuses on what's needed to drive the outcomes we desire with the mindset of shared value and long-term sustainability. The structure and discussions will include practical examples from the financial services sector, for example, but we will definitely welcome learning from other sectors as we see members represented from across all sectors of our economy here. From regulators, from development organizations, and from just individuals that believe they can and should be empowered enough to contribute to this discourse. Insights and discussions leading to recommendations for the private sector players and policymakers will definitely be gathered, harnessed, formalized, and communicated into the relevant spaces. Thoughts to be drawn from the engagements will also be further buttressed by research and additional insights that we'll obviously be working on after the event to ensure that the thoughts are properly processed and can be packaged into recommendations that are practical. So in final analysis, this engagement will be successful if after the event we emerge stronger in our sense of shared understanding, shared responsibility, and accountability about the choices we make today, the steps we take today to create a better future. Those choices, I think one of the indicators will be how well and how much confidence do we have about committing ourselves to long-term development initiatives, long-term savings, long-term ways of protecting our risks, protecting ourselves from risks and the like. Confidence is earned, inclusion is designed, that's what we believe, through the combination of solutions and policy support, but innovation is led, so we will also find success in us coming out of this place and leading in terms of the ways that we will innovate solutions for our customers. In conclusion, let us shift forward beyond imagining the future and just thinking about the future to taking steps collaboratively to build that future together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matsekete. I think that really lays the foundation for the rich conversation that is now sure to follow. I do appreciate the financial underpinning of this entire gathering because money does control our lives in a sense. In fact, they say money is important, if only for financial considerations. The other thing I also, that occurred to me was that even as we sit here, I would like to be able to master the language of money because they say money talks, but the only thing it ever says to me is goodbye. So I've also got to improve my own financial habits. But thank you for your words, Mr. Matsekete. And now we are about to get into the meat of the business. But I'd like to challenge my co-facilitator today, Andy, very quickly, because my little niece came up to me just before and said, Patrick, what do you call, because, you know, Andy understands all matters finance, so I defer to him and his greater knowledge. So I want to challenge him and say that, what do you call a wet stack of bills, just so we can get the mind going? What do we call a wet stack of bills? All these financial people understand this, I presume. So we're not going to waste too much time. You see, I got him stumped.
You've got me stumped.
Exactly.
I'm not going to say the zig.
So my
because
little...
the deputy governor's here, so I'm not going to say that. It's not true. Okay, I give up.
Well, there you go. A wet stack of bills is what we call a liquid asset. Anyway, let's get into the business of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, our pillar, for a start, is the digital innovation. What do we do to leverage this digital environment in order to progress the initiatives that we need to? And who better to get us started for the first keynote, Better Future keynote delivery, than a gentleman called Fayaz King. I have heard about Fayaz King for the longest time because of his multiple existence, if you will, on various boards of directors. He has a storied career where he's risen to the top of the development arena as head of one of the biggest agencies. But other than that, he is a devoted intellectual who has a strong interest, as it happens, in all matters to do with technology, digital innovation, telecommunication, and also how information is disseminated. And when you get to understand him and know him, he is an amazing human being who has a genuine interest in the progression of the average Zimbabwean. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome him here today, because his only transgression is minor, is that as a schoolboy at Mutare Boys High, he committed the minor transgression of beating Prince Edward Boys High at basketball. So him and I have a little thing going on that basis. But other than that, he's still my friend. Please, let's put our hands together for Mr. Fayaz King, ladies and gentlemen.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed, a very good morning to you. It gives me an absolute pleasure and an honor to be the starting keynote this morning. Let me start with a quote from a gentleman called William Gibson. And he says, "The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed." In 2023, Sub-Saharan Africa processed over $1.3 trillion through mobile money. This is more than the GDP of Nigeria. This is not a statistic, it's a signal. A signal that when policy, technology, and trust comes together, Africa leads. But here's the challenge. The same technologies that power inclusion can also amplify exclusion. So the real question is this: how do we design digital finance that does not scale transactions? How do we scale trust? Because trust is the true currency of the digital economy. And without trust, we cannot build a better future. Today, there are three big shifts that are reshaping finance. The first shift, from digital projects to digital profit and loss. Digital is no longer an experiment. It defines the economics of banks, insurers, and capital markets. The second big shift, we're moving from rigid rules to guiding principles, because regulation cannot chase innovation with a clipboard. Not possible. Regulation must be a compass, not a cage. The third biggest shift is from compliance as a burden to compliance as a dividend. With regulation technology and supervisory technology, compliance becomes a confidence multiplier for customers, for investors, for regulators alike. Let's look at this by way of a framework. And let's think of it as a simple 3x3 framework, where we want 3 outcomes which we want to achieve, and 3 enablers which will help us get there. So let's look at the outcomes. What is it we want to achieve? The first is inclusion, and we've heard Sam speak about this. We want inclusion so women, youth, rural communities, and first-time users are not left behind. The second is we want resilience, again buttressing a point which Sam also raised with us here this morning, so that systems withstand shocks, fraud, and of course, cyber attacks, which I'll talk a lot more on. And the third outcome that we're looking for is one of integrity, so that our markets run on fairness and transparency. But in order to do this, we need enablers. And we need 3 specific enablers. We need principle-based policy. Second, we need proportionate oversight. And third, we need data and model governance. When trust is coded into the system, confidence grows. So where is AI today, and how is it reshaping finance? Let me put it to you this way. If digital built the rails, AI is now driving the train. I'll say this again. If digital built the rails, AI is now driving the train. AI is not the train, it is driving the train. In retail and SME banking, AI is cutting friction, verifying customers faster, and detecting fraud in real time. In credit scoring, AI is using alternative data to give young people and small businesses a chance. Because a credit score should be a door opener, not a gatekeeper. And regulators themselves are also using AI. They are detecting anomalies, they are mapping hidden risks, and they're also uncovering dangerous leakages. So AI is reshaping finance. It is taking us to the next level, and we need to be ensured that we are in line with what is happening. But importantly, let's not forget about capital markets, because they are the heartbeat of long-term growth and also long-term saving. AI is transforming them, and I'll just highlight 3 particular ways. First, in market surveillance with NLP tools. Second, with liquidity forecasting to stabilize volatility. And then third, and very importantly, board-level accountability for explainable and ethical AI. Done right, this deepens liquidity, it strengthens transparency, it enhances investor confidence, and it helps shift national mindsets towards long-term saving and insurance. Very important. I think the analogy that Sam made about planting trees in advance is so important. They say for a society to be considered developed, it's when old men plant trees in whose shade they know they will never enjoy. Most importantly, we also need to consider and protect the first-time users. Behind every transaction, behind every data point, there is a person. The first-time digital user faces 3 risks, and I'll articulate these. The first is the risk of comprehension. Do they understand? The second is the risk of consent. Do they know what they're agreeing to? And the third is the risk of recovery. If they lose money, can they get it back? Remember this, and remember this well, that trust arrives on foot, but when it leaves on horseback. If people lose faith, adoption will stall. But if we grow confidence, adoption will deepen. And when adoption deepens, saving, insuring, investing becomes second nature. This is how societies shift forward. When we talk about shifting forward and shifting gears, it's all about confidence. When we have the confidence and the trust, we move forward. So what lessons do we pick from Africa and what's happening around us? We don't need to look far in the technology space. In South Africa, there's a multi-regulator sandbox proving fintech can scale responsibly. In Kenya, they have a test and learn culture at the central bank that has enabled mobile money products. And of course, here in Zimbabwe, we have a fintech sandbox, which is a good start, but we could make it stronger in terms of the criteria we use. We could make and install clearer feedback loops, and we could make it transparent in terms of graduation pathways. These are not lessons or theories. These are things that we can adopt, and they are lessons that we can scale. We have the foundations, and we've proved that in certain circumstances, that not only in Africa, but in Zimbabwe in particular, that we can scale, that we can learn, and that we can take advantage of this. But having said that, let's be practical, and let me spell out a 12-point agenda and roadmap so that we move from talk to action. First is for the policymakers in the room. Number 1, issue an AI in finance supervisory note. This brings confidence to the marketplace. Number 2, strengthen the sandbox. Fantastic product that's there. Have a look at it, strengthen it, so that innovation can take place in a safer environment. Create a financial data council so that the data you use is usable. Number 4, pilot supervisory tech tools. This again gives the confidence to all the players in the marketplace that you are up there in the use of technology. And let me also put some markers out for the market infrastructures. For those involved in marketing infrastructure, adopt fair data standards. By fair, the F is for findable data, the A is for accessible data, the I is for interoperable data, and the R is for reusable data. And number 6, use AI in market surveillance. It makes life so much easier. It's quicker. It brings you to manage some of these things quickly, real time, and interactively. You move from reactive to being proactive. Number 7, align with ISSB sustainable disclosures. If you introduce sustainability in design, sustainability from the outset, it does not become an issue. The products and services that you bring to market meet those criteria at word go. For banks and insurers and fintechs, number 8, establish model risk management charters, especially in the boardroom, where accountability, responsibility, and explainability of AI should be an everyday matter. Number 9, build products for first-time users. Anything you do should have inclusivity as a basis for design. Number 10, track data lineage. So if you've got the lineage of your quality of your data and its uses and its anonymization, tracking it allows you to bring to market products much quicker and much easier. Number 11, share fraud intelligence. The many eyes that you have looking at a problem, the most likely it is being seen. The comfort of being in a herd is by far better than being on your own. And number 12, invest in cross-functional talent. Talent is a premium, but if you invest in cross-cultural talent and share the talent as well, then you will be setting yourself up for a decent agenda of going forward. Having laid out these 12 principles or 12 agenda items that can move us from talk to action, these don't become dreams. These are decisions waiting to be taken and to be taken in this room throughout the course of the day. So what does success look like? Success looks like customers using digital accounts every week. It looks like banks and insurers lowering their cost to serve and the cost to comply. It looks like capital markets that are liquid, resilient, and trusted. And it looks like regulators anticipating risk and not reacting to it, because regulators are not brakes. They are the steering that guide us safely to growth. In closing, if Zimbabwe embraces a principle-based regulation, it embraces rigorous data governance, and it embraces inclusion by design, we will not catch up in this AI race. We will lead. The world once looked to Africa for mobile money revolution. The next frontier is responsible AI in finance. And we can also lead from here in this room. So let us shift forward together toward a better future. A future where digital data and AI grow not just markets, but also confidence. The future of digital finance will not be built from monologues from the podium, but from dialogues amongst ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fayaz King. Please, a big round of applause. Another one, please. Thank you very much indeed. Fayaz, if you may, grab a seat. Now, I'll get you underway. Can I have a microphone, please? We are opening up for about the next 10 minutes or so, just to give Fayaz to answer a few questions from us or comments. You know, the issue of AI regulation in any economy is something which has been hotly debated, and I will be asking Fayaz a few questions. And if you look at various jurisdictions, you can actually see how each of them is looking at AI. I think the two I can compare directly is the United States of America and the European Union. In terms of how they are looking at AI, the European Union is much more focused on data protection, information, whereas I suppose the Americans, and Fayaz can correct me, is really gung-ho going ahead. Fayaz, you know, you said this, and I liked what you said. You said that we need to look at what is the issue, what are we trying to solve before we come up with a solution? Unlike the other way where we come up with a solution or regulations, and then we say, oh, this doesn't solve our issues. So if you look at the regulatory framework in Zimbabwe, I mean, there isn't really any, is there, in terms of AI usage, confidence in that. So how can we put in place a regulatory framework that instills that confidence, trust in digital products, particularly from a regulatory perspective?
I think the first thing to recognize is that we do have a data protection framework in which to work with. So we're already making steps in the right direction. So the issues of data privacy, the data issues that surround data privacy, how you use customers' data, and also giving confidence. Remember, I always speak about when you design something, design for the first-time user. So I think we've already made steps in that direction of looking at data privacy. That's the first thing you need, especially in the digital world. Secondly is you need to take a position to signal to the rest of the world. And this can happen through an AI supervisory note or an AI note simply stating the intention and the playing field of what AI would look like within the Zimbabwean environment and Zimbabwean context. So that would be the next step that we need to take to bring the confidence back to the investors and those interested in investing in AI.
One of the issues I think you raised was we talked about inclusion, and of course most of our citizens aren't living in urban areas; they're living in rural areas, or they're outside of city centers or out of cities. So when we talk about financial inclusion, we need to also, I suppose, and maybe this is a question, do we have to come up with products or ideas or solutions, whether digital or through AI, that somehow can create channels of digital products to the rural areas? Because that is an issue, isn't it? Banks, for example, have pretty much pulled out of most centers. They're now moving totally to digital. I find a lot of rural clients are using mobile money transactions. They're not really using any formal sort of banking network except for the mobile money operators. I mean, how can you then create an ecosystem that encompasses and includes everybody?
I think the first thing that we need to consider again, I'm actually going to harp on this subject as to how you design products or services. Remember, you need to protect the first-time user. For any digital product to take off, the user needs to have confidence. They need to understand, okay, so what does this mean to me? If I lose my money, how will I get it back? If I do a digital transaction and it doesn't execute or it doesn't happen the way it's supposed to happen, whether I make a mistake or the system has a glitch in it, how do I correct that? So once there's confidence, the first thing is about confidence in digital products. They take off. When any digital product that you put on the market doesn't take off, yeah, it's a case purely of confidence. That's the first thing. Then the second thing is to design things with the end user in mind, being a first-time user. The products that have USSD codes, rather than working purely on a smartphone platform, those will tend to be a lot more successful. So when you design your products, design products that can work on phones that operate on an operating system, Android 3.0 and below. And that's the use of USSD. So design them in such a simple manner that the user first